So you've got Hawaii on your list of places to retire. Maybe you've been here a bunch of times. So you want to live here. You want to retire here. Good. Where? Where in Hawaii do you want to retire? Can you tell me, for example, why you'd want to live on the windward side of the island versus the leeward side of the island? Or can you tell me why the only place where you could be is urban Honolulu? Picking a district to live in Hawaii, it's a big deal. Big deal, especially if you're going into your retirement years, because you don't have a lot of time to make mistakes. So in this video, I'm going to go over 4 big questions you need to be able to answer to help you find the right district for retirement. And we're going to go in reverse order. The least important will go first. Aloha. I'm Peter K. And I have been living the dream in Hawaii since the 80s. And I connect with people that want to live in Hawaii. So if that's you, this is your channel. You want to click on subscribe and get that notification. We turn out videos every other week. Okay, this video is part of a longer playlist I put together for those that want some information about retiring in Hawaii. So I go over all kinds of other topics related to retirement, so you want to check that out. So the question is, what's the right district for you to retire in Hawaii? Man, I'm in this great spot right now. Look, like right behind me is like a beautiful ocean. I'm at Mauna Lua Bay on the eastern part of Oahu. A beautiful place to go. A lot of fishing boats go back there. One of the most amazing things about Hawaii is how completely different the districts can be from one another. It's like a different world, all inside one island. You know, you really can feel you've gone to like another planet depending on what part of the island that you're on. So let's start the countdown with the 4 most important questions you need to ask yourself and understand so that you can pick the right district. Now, I'm not going to tell you what district to go to because everyone's different, but I am going to tell you the questions you need to answer to help you find the right district. Number 4, the least important question: what's your budget? Now, that might seem counterintuitive, but stay tuned, you'll understand why. Now, why isn't budget the most important thing? Well, the reason why budget's not the most important thing is because if you make it the most important thing, I will almost guarantee you'll pick the wrong district. Almost every district in Hawaii across the state has homes in most of the available price range. Now, it doesn't mean you'll find a home for $100,000 in every district. In fact, according to the median prices in 2022, you won't find a home anywhere for $100,000. But that's beside the point. But it does mean that if you're in the market and can pay a median price for a home, you can find one in virtually any district you choose. It's June of 2022. The prices are where they're at. Homes, for example, right now, median price hovering around $1 million, $1.1, $1.2 million on Maui and Oahu. Condos are less, $600,000, $700,000. But again, ignore the price. That doesn't matter. What matters is if you can pay the median price, it means you can find a home in any district that you want. So again, this is why price and budget is last. So really the takeaway here is you got to find the district you want to live in first, and then find something that fits your price. What district is that? Well, again, not going to tell you the district other than take a look at that deep blue ocean straight ahead of us. I love this drive. We just passed up Hanauma Bay, very famous attraction on Oahu, and straight ahead is that beautiful ocean. Never get tired of this view. There's another view right around the corner here. Stay tuned. This beautiful coastline, this is the Kaiwi coastline right down there. It is absolutely awesome. And then right up here is Koko Head, another great hike, a great view. It's a beautiful place. I can never get enough of it. I've been driving it since the 80s, and I still love it every single time I go down this drive. Hey, are you on my newsletter? I send out a newsletter every Wednesday with links to videos like this one. You get an invite to a free live show where you can ask questions about Hawaii. It's all in the newsletter. It's free. Click on the link in the description, sign up. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. All right, the third most important question about finding the right district. How remote can you be? How remote can you be from major population areas? It means how far can you be from utilities? Because you can't live in the middle of nowhere in Hawaii. How far do you want to be from any kind of town? How far do you want to be from shopping areas? Those are all important questions you need to ask yourself. How far away do you want to be from you? By the way, look at this ocean. I just love this color. It's just such a fabulous place. Yeah. And I don't know if this will pick up on the camera, but right down here is an awesome beach called Cockroach Cove. It's from where a famous scene of the movie From Here to Eternity was filmed, right in that beach down there. It looks rough, but it's really, really cool. It's a great beach. Beautiful place. So in Hawaii, you can live off the grid in Hawaii. And by off the grid, I mean you don't have access to anything, electricity, water, sewage, none of that. And the question is, do you want to live that way? Now, you know, a lot of people are enamored with the idea of, oh, I want to live off the grid and I want to have solar panels and all that stuff, but you kind of really don't know what that means. For example, you may like the idea of living on solar panels. Yeah, what do you do when it's cloudy? What do you do when there's no sun? Rain, overcast. You gonna go without electricity? Oh, you say batteries. Okay, batteries. Batteries ain't gonna last through a week of rain. A rainy week, battery's not gonna make it. So you need to think about those things. What about water? There are places on the Big Island where there is no running water. How do you get the water? You catch it from rainwater. Rainwater goes on your roof, goes down a gutter and gets stored in a pool. And then you draw from that pool. It's called catchment. So if you're gonna have catchment, simple question, how big should the pool be? What is the size of your family? And what are your usage patterns?
Normally, like you want like a 10,000 gallon tank. Like you can go down to like 7,000, but if you go down to like 5, unless you're in a really rainy area that rains a lot, you know, you want to be able to make sure that, you know, if you got 30 days of no rain, that you're going to be able to survive that.
Something else you take for granted. You say, oh, cool, I'll catch rainwater. All right. What about fire hydrants?
Hey, where's the fire hydrants? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as fire hydrants, you know? And so, and to your point, Scott and Dylan, you know, if you're going to have a catchment system, yeah, that water that's sitting in your catchment tank is going to potentially be used to put the fire out of your house if your house catches on fire.
And if you don't have running water, which means you got to use catchment, what about wastewater? There's no county sewage, so you have to have a septic tank. And if you don't have a septic tank on the property, you're going to have to dig a hole in the ground and put one in there. See, there's all kinds of things that we take for granted. What about trash? Here's a good question.
Hey, what days does the garbage truck come by to pick up the trash? And they said, well, you can go and take out the trash any day you want. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah. You have to put it in your car and drive like, 20 miles down and dump it off at the thing. Like, oh, okay. A lot of things we take for granted. And it's just like, normal country living.
That's right. Makapu'u Beach, greatest place in the world, right down there. That is my favorite spot, man. Love that place. Try to go surfing there twice a week. Great ritual. Love it. Okay, we talk about how remote you can be. How far can you be from any kind of town? See, on the mainland, you could live sort of 100 miles away from a town and you would be kind of in the middle of nowhere and be about an hour and a half drive, right? But in Hawaii, there's no such thing as 100 miles away. Why? 100 miles away is another island. And you can't drive to those islands. You gotta fly there. And if you gotta fly there, that means you gotta fly there, you gotta rent a car there, you may have to rent a hotel there. So which means if you have to fly to the other island, it's gonna be expensive. Look at this water here. I love this view. It's just beautiful. So for all practical purposes, it's not realistic to think that you can easily fly to the other islands. Technically you can, but it takes a lot of effort, time, planning, and expense. The island that you live on is where you're going to be spending the majority of your time, and you'll only be rarely flying to the other islands. So the takeaway with this is that you can't make up for long distances by just driving. There's a limit in Hawaii. It's really about 50 miles or so. Beyond that, you're really talking about almost a different island. So how far away from a town can you be? And by town, I mean a place where you can get, basic groceries and, fuel for your car. What this comes down to is, how far do you want to drive to pick up a pound of hamburger? You could live in the middle of nowhere, but but you don't want to be driving for an hour just to put some gas in the tank. I love this view right here. Look at that turquoise green, blue water. It's so beautiful at this time of the day when the sun's overhead. This is Waimanalo Beach. It's a big, huge, long, stretching beach that goes on for miles. In the walks of your life here. Beach walks like you can't believe. So, how far can you be from a shopping district? So let's say you found a place that has a convenience store only a few miles away. What about when you need to go to the supermarket, or Costco, or like a hardware store, or like Dylan says?
Sometimes people just like to go to Target and browse, right? And if that's an hour and a half away, you're not going to do that very often. So that's one thing to really think about is it worth saving the money on the house and giving up those other lifestyle benefits?
So the good news is that in today's modern times, shopping options in Hawaii are much better than they used to be. There's a lot of big box retailers that have come here now. You got Costco, you got the big hardware stores. Wasn't always that way. I love this view, man. I love this view. Like that island over there, Rabbit Island. Just the coolest place. And of course we have Amazon, which, Amazon Prime, man. Everybody in Hawaii loves Amazon Prime. We use it all the time. Although, not everything ships on Amazon Prime that you're used to. For example, batteries. Certain kinds of devices that have batteries will not ship. Lithium batteries blowing up or something like that. Large furniture won't ship. But that all said, it's a blessing. Here's the big takeaways for how remote you want to be. Number one, off the grid. It may sound like a lot of fun. It may be really something that you kind of fantasize about, but unless you've done it, you better be sure what you're getting into. And the other one is, how far really can you be from shopping, from conveniences? How far do you want to drive for a pound of hamburger? How close do you need to be to Costco? How long do you want to drive for those basic things? You got to consider that. Second most important thing, districts hold lifestyles. So what does this mean for you? It means you've got to pick the right district because, like Scott says,
districts to me come down to the lifestyle that you want. Do you want to be in the country? Do you want to be in the city?
The district comes down to the lifestyle you want. So one of the many great things about this incredible diversity, this incredible geological diversity that we have in Hawaii, this climate diversity we have in Hawaii, one of the great things about Hawaii is the geographical climate that you want is a short drive away. Do you want wet rainforest? You want to live on the windward side of the island. You want dry, desert-like? You want to live on the leeward side of the island. You want flat plains? Live in the valleys. You like the cooler, high altitude? Live up in the mountains. You want modern urban life with all of the creature comforts of a big city? Honolulu. You like the small towns? Plenty of them. You want the middle of nowhere? There are remote places of almost all the islands. The only thing you can't get in Hawaii is tundra. Frozen ground. Doesn't exist. Dylan explains why some of the biggest mistakes that retirees make is they prioritize
budget and low-cost housing over desired lifestyle.
And that's why I have Budgets Last, because you can get pretty low-cost housing on the Big Island. But there's a reason why the properties are so low in cost. They're in the middle of nowhere. And for retirees, what Dylan says is that
I've seen a lot of times retirees get bored or they feel lonely because they're kind of isolated. They're far away from everything. There is community there, but it's not like where you're in a town like Hilo or Kailua Kona, where you're going to have more activities and gatherings and groups and clubs and things like that.
So what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to live in a district that doesn't support your lifestyle. Because after a couple of years,
sometimes after a couple of years, you know, retirees feel like, well, you know, I need to sell and move to a different area because this doesn't afford me the lifestyle that I desire. So
whatever you may have think you saved in the housing, you're going to spend all what you saved and more to move again to find a district that fits your lifestyle. And you could have avoided all that in the first place. Another great ocean view here. Love this ocean view. This is the sandy beach area. We got some pretty good sized surf today. Because the last thing you have to waste as a retiree is your time. You don't want to waste a few years living in the wrong district, only to have to pick up and move again to a new one and make new friends all over again. And this is why you can't let budget decide. You got to pick the district first, because what's the point if you save money and you're unhappy? Especially when you're in retirement. You're supposed to enjoy it, remember? So what's the takeaway here? Be clear on the lifestyle you want and pick the district that fits the lifestyle. Living in the right district will be the #1 influence on your quality of life. And because you can't easily change your district, you have to be confident you're making the right choice. The #1 most important issue when retiring in picking the right place to live. But first, look at this great view, man. Ocean view here, mountains up there. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. Okay. The most important aspect, the most important consideration in picking the right district for retirement is healthcare. Healthcare options, healthcare needs. This obviously overrides everything. And healthcare options do vary dramatically on each island. Like Scott says,
if there's health issues and health needs, we obviously have to address that.
So look, in some ways, Hawaii is really no different from the mainland when it comes to healthcare availability. The big hospitals are in the big cities. Small towns have country doctors. Same thing in Hawaii. It's nearly impossible to get specialists in rural areas on the mainland. Same thing in Hawaii. But in one huge way, it's completely different. So for example, let's say you need a heart specialist. You're living on Kauai. Guess where the heart specialists are? They're not on Kauai. They're on Oahu. And you can't drive from Kauai to Oahu. That means every time you got to see your heart specialist, you got to drive to Kauai. Another great view. Look at this view. It's one of my favorites. You're driving over, we just passed Hanauma Bay, we're over the hill and we're looking at the Maunalua Bay area. That's Diamond Head way in the distance over there. Another beautiful view. I have a lot of friends that live on the other islands and they do have to fly to Oahu to meet with their specialists. Big surgeries, you gotta fly to Oahu because there ain't no specialists on their island. So your takeaway here is you have to be very clear in understanding your healthcare needs. For many retirees, this is the end of the story right here because you're going to need healthcare, and of course as you age, you're going to need more healthcare. You want to be on an island that's got good healthcare systems. Right now, there's only one island in that game, and that's Oahu. So make sure you're clear on what's available on the other islands and what you're going to need. Because practically speaking, the hospitals, the specialists are on Oahu. If you're going to be retiring and living on other islands, make sure you're very clear on what kind of healthcare is available. So let's kind of summarize everything to what you're going to need to know when you pick the right district to retire in Hawaii. First, healthcare overrides everything. Second, pick the district that matches your lifestyle. Third, be clear on how remote you really want to be. And finally, once you've gotten all that out of the way, find the right price. All right, you got a question for me? I got a link in the description. Click on that to the form, fill out your question, give me your name and where you're from so I can give you credit. I'm Peter K, and I have been living the dream since the 80s in Hawaii. I love it here. Can't get enough of it. What about you? Aloha.